They accused her of theft at a vampire gala because she was the orphan living on charity. But the 800-year-old Vampire King saw something no one else did. Her mother's locket was a royal artifact. In 10 days, she went from servant to queen, and the aunt who abused her for a decade, serving 25 years in prison. This is how Alara Whitmore made them all kneel. The kitchen smelled like burnt sugar and desperation. Alara Whitmore stood at the counter with flour dusting her worn apron and exhaustion pressing against the back of her eyes like a physical weight. 3 in the morning. The house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and her own ragged breathing. She'd been awake for 21 hours. Her shift at the diner had run until 11. Then home to cook tomorrow's meals. Then laundry. Then the bookkeeping work she did in secret, hunched over a laptop with a cracked screen, entering numbers for small businesses who paid her under the table. Every dollar mattered. Every cent was measured against the cost of keeping Alaric alive. She wiped her hands on a towel and glanced at the clock. 3:17. In 2 hours, Aunt Vivian would wake and expect breakfast on the table. Fresh fruit, Greek yogurt, coffee brewed to exact specifications. The slightest deviation would earn that look. The one that said Alara was defective, broken, a burden that should be grateful for the roof over her ungrateful head. Alara's fingers went to the locket at her throat, silver, tarnished with age, a spiral pattern etched into the surface that caught the light when she moved. Her mother's, the only thing she had left of Mira Ashford Whitmore, the only proof that once someone had loved her without conditions. She closed her eyes, felt the cool metal against her skin, tried to remember her mother's face and found only fragments. A smile, soft hands, the smell of lavender. Everything else had blurred in the decades since the accident, since the day her world had collapsed into this endless cycle of work and silence and swallowing words that tasted like poison. Be grateful. That's what Vivian said. Every day, in 100 different ways. Be grateful I took you in when no one else would. Be grateful you have food and shelter. Be grateful I'm teaching you responsibility. Alara opened her eyes and stared at the kitchen that wasn't hers. The house that would never be hers. The life she hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. 23 years old, and every single day felt like drowning in slow motion. She finished the meal prep, wrapped everything precisely, labeled containers, wiped down counters until they gleamed, erased every trace of her presence because that's what Vivian required. Invisibility, silence, the appearance of effortless perfection that made it seem like the house ran itself and Alara contributed nothing. At 5, she climbed the stairs to the attic room. Not a bedroom, a storage space converted with a mattress on the floor and a single lamp. The ceiling slanted so sharply she couldn't stand upright near the walls. In winter, it was freezing. In summer, suffocating. But it was hers. The one place Vivian and Cassandra didn't enter because they found it beneath them. Alara didn't sleep. She sat on the mattress and opened her laptop, checked her bank account. $743. She'd been saving for 3 years. Every freelance job, every tip from the diner, every dollar she could hide from Vivian's demands for rent, for utilities, for the supposed cost of feeding her and Alaric. It wasn't enough. Alaric's medication cost $800 a month. His cardiologist appointments another $300. The specialists Vivian insisted were necessary, but that Alara suspected were overpriced because Vivian got kickbacks from the referrals. $743. She was short. Again. Alara closed the laptop and pressed her palms against her eyes until colors bloomed behind her lids. Her chest felt tight. Not panic. She'd learned to swallow panic years ago. This was something else. A weariness so complete it had weight. It sat on her shoulders and pressed her down and whispered that this was all there would ever be. This half-life, this existence in the margins of someone else's story. A sound from downstairs. Soft footsteps. Alara froze. Listened. Alaric. She descended the stairs silently. Found him in the hallway outside his room. One hand braced against the wall. 16 years old and too pale. Dark circles under his eyes. Breathing shallow. Rick, she kept her voice low. What's wrong? Couldn't sleep. He tried to smile. Failed. Chest feels tight. Fear spiked through her. Did you take your evening dose? Yeah, it's just... He pressed a hand to his sternum. It's worse lately. I don't know. Alara guided him back to his room, made him sit, checked his pulse. Too fast. She grabbed the blood pressure cuff from his nightstand. The numbers weren't terrible, but they weren't good. She texted his on-call nurse. Got a response within minutes. Monitor overnight. If it worsens, ER. I'm fine, Alaric said. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you're about to break. His voice was gentle, too gentle for someone his age. Chronic illness had stolen his childhood and replaced it with a weariness that made him seem ancient. Elara, I'm okay. She wanted to believe him. She couldn't afford to. Get some rest, she said. I'll check on you in an hour. You need to sleep too. I will. They both knew she was lying. Alaric lay back against the pillows, looked at her with eyes that saw too much. The medication Aunt Vivian got me. The new stuff, I think it's making it worse. Elara stilled. What new stuff? She said it was a trial medication for cardiac patients. Experimental. She's been giving it to me for like 6 months. Ice spread through Alara's veins. She never told me about this. She said not to mention it, that you'd worry. He frowned. But I feel worse, not better. And there's this weird, I don't know, sometimes my skin feels hot, like burning from the inside. Elara's mind raced. Experimental medication, 6 months. Vivian hadn't mentioned a word. And Vivian told Elara everything about Alaric's treatment because Elara was the one who handled his daily care. Why hide this? Where is it? Elara asked. Bathroom cabinet. Orange bottle. She found it. No label. Just a handwritten note. Take one daily. The pills inside were small and dark red. Almost black. They looked wrong. Like something that shouldn't be ingested. Elara's hands shook. She pocketed the bottle, went back to Alaric's room. Don't take any more of these. What? But Aunt Vivian? I don't care what she said. Elara's voice was steel. Promise me. No more. He stared at her, nodded slowly. Okay. She stayed with him until his breathing evened out. Until he fell into restless sleep. Then she descended to the kitchen and stared at the pill bottle under the harsh fluorescent light. Something was wrong. She could feel it. But she had no proof, no resources, no way to fight Vivian without risking everything. Because that was the cage she lived in. Not bars, not locks. Just the constant knowledge that one wrong move would cost her Alaric. And Alaric was all she had left. 2 days later, Vivian swept into the kitchen with the announcement that shattered Elara's fragile equilibrium. We've been invited to a gala. Elara looked up from the dishes. We'd the family. Vivian adjusted her pearl necklace. She was 52 and beautiful in the way of women who spent fortunes on maintenance. Blonde hair professionally styled, skin that refused to wrinkle, a figure maintained through personal trainers and strict diets. She looked at Elara the way someone might look at a stain on expensive fabric. The Blood Moon Gala at the Obsidian Rose Hotel. Elara had heard of it, everyone had. The hotel that catered to vampires, where the wealthy and powerful of both species mingled under chandelier light and pretended the world was civilized. I didn't know you knew anyone who... Cassandra received the invitation. Vivian's tone was sharp. Through a business associate. It's an incredible opportunity. Connections that could change everything for us. Us. As if Elara was included in that equation. I'll stay here with Alaric, Elara said. Absolutely not. Vivian's eyes narrowed. You'll come as my personal attendant. The words landed like a slap. Attendant. Not family, not guest, servant. Cassandra needs someone to manage her wardrobe and handle any emergencies, Vivian continued. And you're quite good at being invisible. Perfect for the role. Elara's jaw tightened. Alaric can't be alone. He's been having episodes. I've arranged for a nurse. Vivian waved a hand dismissively. He'll be fine for one evening. This isn't a discussion, Elara. You're coming. There it was. The edge in Vivian's voice that meant refusal would have consequences. Maybe the medication would suddenly become too expensive. Maybe Alaric would lose access to his specialists. Maybe the roof over their heads would be contingent on obedience. Elara swallowed the words she wanted to say. Nodded. Good girl. Vivian smiled. The expression didn't reach her eyes. Wear something appropriate. Black. Simple. You're staff, not a guest. I don't want anyone confusing the matter. She left. Elara stood in the kitchen with her hands clenched into fists and rage burning behind her sternum like swallowed fire. Cassandra appeared in the doorway. 25. Blonde like her mother. Pretty in a manufactured way that required effort and money. She looked at Elara with casual cruelty. Excited to see how the other half lives? Cassandra's smile was all teeth. Try not to embarrass us. I know it's hard for you to blend in with actual society. I'll do my best, Elara said flatly. You'd better. Cassandra examined her manicured nails. This gala is important. There will be vampires there, real power, the kind of connections that could make or break a family. She looked up, met Alara's eyes. So don't fuck it up. She left. Alara returned to the dishes, scrubbed plates until her hands were raw, and tried not to think about how much she hated them both. The Obsidian Rose Hotel rose from Boston's historic district like a cathedral built for darkness. Alara stood on the sidewalk and stared upward. 7 stories of black granite and Art Deco elegance, windows that gleamed like obsidian. Gargoyles crouched along the roofline, their stone eyes watching the street below with eternal vigilance. The entrance was flanked by iron gates wrought into the shape of thorned roses, and the air smelled like night-blooming flowers and something else. Something cold and old and not quite human. Vampire territory. She could feel it. A weight in the atmosphere. A charge that made the hair on her arms stand upright. Don't gawk, Vivian hissed. She grabbed Alara's arm and steered her toward the entrance. And remember your place. Cassandra walked ahead in a gown that cost more than Alara earned in 6 months. Emerald silk that clung to her figure and made her look like something carved from jealousy and ambition. Her heels clicked against marble as they entered the lobby. Alara wore black, a simple dress from a thrift store. Flat shoes, hair pulled back in a bun so tight it gave her a headache. No jewelry except the locket. Vivian had tried to make her remove it. It's ugly, Vivian had said. Cheap. It was my mother's. Your mother had terrible taste. But Alara had refused, and for once, Vivian had backed down. Maybe because she knew pushing too hard would break something, and Vivian needed Alara functional. The lobby was vast. Chandeliers dripped crystal tears from a ceiling painted with constellations. The floor was black marble veined with silver. Velvet furniture in deep crimson clustered near a fireplace that burned with flames that looked wrong. Too blue, too cold, and everywhere vampires. They moved with liquid grace, spoke in voices like honey poured over glass, wore clothes that looked like they cost more than houses. Their eyes reflected light the way animal eyes did in darkness. Predator shine. Alara had never been this close to so many of them. She kept her gaze down, followed Vivian and Cassandra through the crowd, tried to be invisible the way she'd perfected over years of practice, but she felt watched, a prickling along the back of her neck, the sensation of being observed by something that saw too clearly. She glanced up and met his eyes across the room. He stood near the grand staircase, tall, dressed in black that made him look carved from shadow. Dark hair swept back from a face that was beautiful the way storms were beautiful. Dangerous, compelling. Eyes that were not red like she'd expected vampire eyes to be. Cobalt blue, deep and ancient, and looking directly at her. For a moment, the ballroom disappeared. There was only him, and the strange feeling that she'd seen him before. Not in this life, but somewhere, sometime, in a dream or a past she couldn't remember. Then Vivian yanked her arm and the moment shattered. Stop staring, Vivian snapped. Do you know who that is? Alara shook her head. Lucien Noir, the Vampire King of the Eastern Territory. Vivian's voice dropped to a whisper. 800 years old, controls half of New England, one of the most powerful beings alive. She glared at Alara, and you were staring at him like some starstruck idiot. I wasn't. Yes, you were. Vivian's grip tightened. Remember what I said? You are staff, not a guest. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not draw attention. Do not embarrass this family. Alara pulled her arm free. Understood. She retreated to the shadows near the service corridor, watched Vivian and Cassandra join a cluster of wealthy humans who were clearly thrilled to be mixing with vampire aristocracy, watched them laugh and simper and perform the rituals of social climbing, and tried to ignore the fact that her heart was still racing, from fear, or something else entirely. The gala unfolded like a fever dream. Champagne flowed. Music played from sources Alara couldn't identify. Vampires and humans danced beneath chandeliers that cast everything in fractured light. Conversations hummed with the kind of casual power that came from people who owned things. Cities, fortunes, lives. Alara stayed in the margins. She fetched drinks when Cassandra snapped her fingers, held Cassandra's purse, listened to Vivian whisper cutting commentary about other guests. That one's nouveau riche. You can tell by the shoes. She had work done. Terrible job. He's only here because his family has dirt on someone important. Hours passed. Alara's feet ached. Her head throbbed. She wanted to leave, to go home and check on Alaric and pretend this entire evening hadn't happened. But then Cassandra gasped. My brooch. It's gone. Alara turned. What? The moonstone brooch. Cassandra's hand flew to her throat. Her voice rose. It was right here, I felt it when we arrived. Someone took it. Vivian paled. Cassandra, are you sure? I'm positive. Cassandra's eyes scanned the crowd, and then they landed on Alara. Something cold slithered through Alara's gut. No, she wouldn't. You, Cassandra pointed. Her voice rang out across the ballroom. You were in my room earlier when I was changing. The music stopped. Conversations died. Every head turned toward them. Alara's mouth went dry. I was delivering towels. That's all. The brooch was on my vanity. Cassandra's voice trembled with what Alara recognized as manufactured emotion. And now it's gone. You're the only one who was in there. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vivian stepped forward. Her face was a mask of shock and disappointment. Alara, tell me you didn't. The words were a knife between Alara's ribs. Because Vivian knew. She knew Alara hadn't taken anything, but she was playing a role, performing for an audience. I didn't touch anything, Alara said. Her voice shook. I swear. She's lying. Cassandra turned to the crowd, to the vampires watching with predator interest. She's been in our family for years, living off our charity, and this is how she repays us? Alara felt the room closing in. 200 people, 200 pairs of eyes, all of them seeing her the way Vivian and Cassandra always had. Worthless, guilty, less than human. Her hands trembled. She clasped them behind her back, lifted her chin even though fear was choking her. I didn't take it, she repeated. Then you won't mind being searched. Vivian's voice was ice. She gestured to hotel security. Please, check her. No, God, no, but the guards were already moving forward, hands on her arms, pulling her toward the center of the ballroom, making a spectacle of her humiliation. Alara's vision blurred. Not tears. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not for them. The guard reached for her bag. And then a voice cut through the chaos. Stop! One word, not shouted, not loud, but it silenced the room like a blade through flesh. Alara looked up. Lucien Noir stood 10 feet away. He didn't move toward them, didn't rush or gesture. He simply existed in the space with an authority so absolute it bent the air around him. The guards released Alara immediately, backed away. Cassandra's mouth opened. Your Majesty, Silence. Lucien's gaze swept over Cassandra, over Vivian, and finally landed on Alara. He studied her for a long moment, not with suspicion, with something else. Curiosity, recognition. This girl, he said quietly. What is her name? Alara Whitmore, Your Majesty. Vivian's voice was syrup. She's my niece. We've been caring for her since her parents passed. But I'm afraid she's... I didn't ask for her history. Lucien stepped closer. The crowd parted like water. I asked for her name. He stopped in front of Alara. Up close, he was overwhelming. Not physically. Something else. A presence that made her feel small and seen simultaneously. Alara, he said, testing the name. Look at me. She met his eyes. Cobalt blue. Ancient, holding centuries of knowledge, and something that looked almost like pain. Did you take the brooch? He asked. No. You're certain? Yes. He held her gaze for another heartbeat, then nodded once, as if something had been confirmed. Show me your locket, he said. Alara blinked. What? The necklace. May I see it? Confused, she lifted the chain, let him examine it without touching her. His expression shifted, subtle, but she saw it. Shock, wonder, something that looked like grief. Where did you get this? His voice was barely above a whisper. It was my mother's, Mira Ashford Whitmore. The name landed like a stone in still water. Lucien's eyes widened fractionally. Ashford. Yes, he straightened. Addressed the crowd without taking his eyes off Alara. The girl is innocent. Search her if you must. You'll find nothing. Cassandra sputtered. But Your Majesty, I said search her. The guards moved efficiently, checked Alara's small bag, patted down her dress in a way that made her cheeks burn with humiliation. Nothing. Of course there was nothing. Lucien turned to Cassandra. The brooch. Describe it. It's moonstone, set in silver. Search her room, Lucien said to the guards, thoroughly. Vivian paled. Your Majesty, surely that's not necessary. It's necessary. 10 minutes later, a guard returned, holding a moonstone brooch. Found it in Miss Harlow's jewelry box, Your Majesty, hidden beneath other pieces. The ballroom erupted. Cassandra's face went white, then red. That's impossible. Someone must have planted it. Enough, Lucien's voice cut through her protests. He looked at her with something colder than contempt. You accused an innocent woman publicly. You attempted to humiliate her before 200 witnesses, and you lied. I forgot I put it there, Cassandra stammered. I was mistaken. You were lying. Lucian's gaze moved to Vivian. Both of you, leave. You're no longer welcome in this hotel. Vivian's mouth opened and closed. For once, she had no words. They left, Cassandra in tears, Vivian rigid with fury. And Alara stood in the center of the ballroom with her heart hammering and her hands still shaking, and the impossible reality of what had just happened sinking in slowly. The Vampire King had saved her. Why? Lucian turned back to her. The crowd was already dispersing, returning to their conversations and champagne as if nothing had happened. Come with me, he said quietly. We need to talk. It wasn't a request. Alara followed him through the ballroom, down a corridor lined with oil paintings of long-dead aristocrats, to an office that smelled like old books and something darker. Spice and smoke and time. He closed the door, gestured to a chair. Alara sat. Her legs were trembling too hard to stand. Lucian moved to the window, looked out at Boston's lights spreading below them like fallen stars. Your mother's name was Mira Ashford Whitmore, he said. Not a question. Yes. She died 10 years ago? Car accident. Her and my father, both. He was silent for a long moment. Then he turned, and in his eyes, Alara saw something that made her breath catch. Grief, old and deep and carefully buried. The Ashford family, he said slowly, was one of the first human bloodlines to ally with vampires. 200 years ago, they brokered peace treaties, established laws that protected both species. They were, he paused, they were good people. Alara's fingers tightened on the arms of the chair. I didn't know. Your mother wouldn't have told you. The Ashford line was hunted by vampires who believed humans had no place in our politics, by humans who thought the Ashfords were traitors. By the time I heard they'd been wiped out, it was too late to help. But my mother, surveyed, changed her name, hid. His gaze dropped to the locket visible at her throat. That crest, it's the Ashford family seal. It marks you as a bloodline descendant. Under vampire law, that gives you certain rights. Alara's head was spinning. What rights? The right to speak in council. The right to protection. The right to be heard. He stepped closer. Alara Whitmore, your aunt and cousin tried to destroy you tonight. The question was gentle, but it cracked something open inside her. Because they can, she whispered. Because I'm nothing to them. A burden. Someone who exists to serve and be grateful and never ask for anything more. Lucian's jaw tightened. How long have you lived with them? 10 years. And they've treated you like a servant. It wasn't a question. Alara didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Lucian moved to his desk, withdrew a business card, placed it in front of her. I'm offering you a job, he said. Liaison between human staff and vampire guests at this hotel. Salary of $120,000 a year. Full medical benefits, including coverage for family members. Alara stared at the card. The numbers didn't make sense. That was more than she'd earned in 5 years at the diner. Why? She asked. Because you're intelligent, composed under pressure, and you have blood right that makes you uniquely qualified to bridge two worlds. He paused. And because Cassandra didn't act alone tonight. Someone told her to accuse you. I want to know who. You think someone set this up? I know they did. His eyes were hard. Your cousin isn't intelligent enough to orchestrate that kind of public spectacle on her own. Someone wanted to see how I'd react, to test whether I'd protect a human in my territory. Alara's mind raced. And if I work for you, I'm bait. You're protected. The correction was sharp. No one will touch you without answering to me. She looked at the card again. $120,000. Medical coverage for Alaric. A way out of Vivian's house. Freedom, but also danger. She was being pulled into something larger than herself, something with currents she didn't understand and stakes she couldn't measure. I need to think about it, she said. Lucian nodded. Take the night. But Alara? He waited until she met his eyes. Whatever your aunt and cousin have told you about your worth, they're lying. You deserve more than survival. The words hit her like a fist to the chest. She stood, took the card, left the office before the tears building behind her eyes could fall. In the corridor, she pressed her back against the wall and breathed. Once, twice, trying to process what had just happened. The Vampire King had saved her, offered her a lifeline, seen something in her that even she wasn't sure existed. And for the first time in 10 years, Alara Whitmore felt something other than resignation. She felt hope, fragile, terrifying, but real. She clutched the business card and walked toward the exit, toward whatever came next, toward a future that might actually be hers. Dawn came slowly to Boston. Alara stood at the window of her attic room and watched gray light bleed across the skyline. She hadn't slept. The business card sat on the mattress behind her. White, elegant. Lucien Noir's name embossed in silver letters that caught the early light. $120,000. The number kept circling in her mind like a bird trapped in a cage. It was impossible. It was salvation. It was a door opening into a world she'd never believed she could enter. But doors open both ways. And Alara knew enough about power to understand that nothing came without cost. Lucien Noir wanted something, information, access, a spy embedded in the human world who could navigate vampire politics with bloodline authority he clearly valued. She wasn't naive enough to believe his offer was pure charity, but she was desperate enough not to care. The house stirred below her, Viviane's alarm, the shower running in Cassandra's bathroom, the machine of the morning routine grinding to life. Alara descended the stairs, found Vivian in the kitchen, already dressed, hair perfect, makeup flawless, looking at Alara like she was a stain that had mysteriously appeared on expensive marble. "You humiliated us last night," Vivian said. No greeting, no acknowledgement of what had actually happened. That spectacle with the Vampire King, drawing attention, making a scene. Alara set the business card on the counter between them. Vivian's eyes dropped to it, narrowed. "What is this?" "A job offer, from Lucien Noir." The silence that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Vivian picked up the card. "Read it." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Calculation. Fear. Anger held on a leash so tight it trembled. "You're not taking it," Vivian said. "Yes, I am." "Alara." Vivian's voice dropped to that dangerous softness, the tone that preceded ultimatums. "You live in my house. You have responsibilities here. To me, to Cassandra, to Alaric. Alaric will have better medical coverage through my new benefits package than anything you've ever provided." Alara kept her voice level, calm. "I start Monday. I'll be moving out this weekend." Vivian's hand slammed against the counter. The sound cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. "You ungrateful little bitch." The words were poison. "I took you in when you had nothing. I fed you, clothed you, gave you a home, and this is how you repay me? By running off to work for vampires?" Alara met her aunt's eyes and felt something shift inside her. Something that had been bent for 10 years suddenly straightening. "You didn't take me in out of kindness," Alara said quietly. "You did it because it looked good, because people would think you were generous, noble. But you've treated me like a servant since the day I arrived. So don't pretend this is about gratitude. It's about control." Vivian's face went white, then red. "Get out of my house." "I was planning to." "No." Vivian stepped closer. Her voice shook with rage. "I mean now, today. Take your things and leave. You're not welcome here anymore." Alara's stomach dropped. "Alaric is my responsibility, not yours. You want to abandon this family? Fine. But you don't get to take him with you." The words were a knife between Alara's ribs, because Vivian knew. She knew exactly where to cut. "He needs me," Alara said. Her voice cracked. "I'm the one who manages his medication, his appointments. I'm a child playing nurse." Vivian smiled, cold. "I've arranged for professional care. He'll be fine. Better even without you coddling him." Alara wanted to argue, to fight, but she saw the truth in Vivian's eyes. This wasn't about Alaric's well-being. This was punishment. This was Vivian demonstrating that she still held all the power, that Alara could run to vampire kings and high-paying jobs, but at the end of the day, Vivian controlled what mattered most. "You have 1 hour to pack," Vivian said. "Then I want you gone." She left. Alara stood in the kitchen with her hands shaking and her heart breaking, and the terrible knowledge that she'd just lost the only thing that had kept her tethered to this place. Alaric, her little brother. The reason she'd endured 10 years of abuse without breaking, and now Vivian was taking him away like it meant nothing. Alara packed in silence. Her belongings fit in 2 duffel bags, clothes, laptop, the few books she owned. Everything else in the attic room belonged to the house. To Vivian, she left most of it. She only wanted what was hers. Alaric found her on the stairs. "You're leaving." His voice was small, scared. Alara set down the bags and pulled him into a hug, felt his arms wrap around her like he was drowning, and she was the only solid thing in the current. Just for a little while, she lied. I got a new job. I'll have my own place. And as soon as I'm settled, you will visit. I promise. Aunt Vivian said you abandoned us. The words were knives. I'm not abandoning you. Alara pulled back, looked him in the eye. Listen to me. I will always be your sister. Always. No matter where I live or what job I have. You are the most important person in my life. Do you understand? Alaric nodded, but his eyes were wet. The new medication, Alara said quietly. Don't take it anymore. Tell the nurse you're allergic. Make something up. But don't take it. Okay? Why? I don't trust it. Just promise me. I promise. She hugged him again. Memorized the feeling, the weight of him, the way he still smelled like the lavender soap she bought because it reminded her of their mother. Then she picked up her bags and left. Walked down the driveway, out of the house that had been a prison for a decade, into a future that terrified her. But at least it was hers. The Obsidian Rose Hotel looked different in daylight, less menacing, more elegant. The black granite caught the sun and threw it back in fragments. The gargoyles seemed less like warnings and more like guardians. Alara stood in the lobby with her 2 duffel bags and the terrible awareness that she had nowhere else to go. Miss Whitmore, she turned. A woman approached. Vampire. Alara could tell now, something about the way they moved, fluid, controlled, like dancers who'd perfected every step. This one was older, not physically. Vampires didn't age, but there was something in her eyes, kindness worn smooth by centuries. I'm Doctor Isadora Cross, the woman said. Lucian asked me to meet you. He mentioned you'd be starting Monday, but... She glanced at the bags. It seems circumstances have changed. I'm sorry, I didn't know where else. Don't apologize. Isadora's voice was gentle. Come, we'll get you settled. She led Alara through corridors Alara hadn't seen during the gala. Staff areas, behind the glamour, to a small apartment on the 3rd floor. 1 bedroom, kitchenette, bathroom, windows overlooking the street. It was smaller than Vivian's house. It was paradise. Employee housing, Isadora explained. Lucian keeps several units available. This one's yours for as long as you work here. Alara set down her bags, tried to process the fact that she had her own space, her own key, no one to answer to. Thank you, she managed. Isadora smiled. I'll let you settle in. But Alara, she paused in the doorway, if you need anything, even just someone to talk to, I'm in the medical wing, 3rd floor, East Corridor. Don't hesitate. She left. Alara stood in the center of her new apartment and felt something crack open inside her chest. Relief, grief, freedom, loss, all of it tangled together until she couldn't separate one from the other. She sat on the floor, put her head in her hands, and finally let herself cry. The first 2 days passed in a blur of orientation and learning. Alara met the hotel staff, human and vampire both, learned the hierarchy, the unspoken rules, the careful dance of 2 species coexisting in a space that belonged more to one than the other. She worked hard. Lucian had given her an office, small but professional, a desk, computer, access to personnel files and scheduling systems. Her job was to mediate, to smooth conflicts before they escalated, to translate between human needs and vampire expectations. She was good at it. Years of reading Vivian's moods had taught her to navigate power dynamics, to understand what people really meant beneath what they said, to find solutions that satisfied everyone without appearing to choose sides. And Lucian noticed. He appeared in her office on day 3, knocked despite the open door. How are you settling in, he asked. Well, thank you. He studied her, those cobalt eyes seeing too much. Your brother, Alaric. How is he? Alara's throat tightened. I don't know. My aunt won't let me speak to him. Something dark crossed Lucian's expression. That's unacceptable. It's legal. She's his guardian. Only until you petition for custody. Alara blinked. I can't afford a lawyer for that kind of case. I can. He said it simply, as if money was irrelevant. If you want to fight for him, I'll provide resources. The offer hung between them. Alara wanted to say yes, wanted to grab it with both hands and not let go. But she'd learned to be wary of gifts. Why would you do that? She asked. Lucian was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. I had a sister once. Human. I failed to protect her from people who believed she didn't deserve to exist simply because of what she was born to. He met Alara's eyes. I won't make that mistake again. The honesty in his words stole her breath. Thank you, she whispered. He nodded. I'll have my legal team contact you. He left, and Alara sat in her office with the weight of possibility pressing against her chest. Maybe she could get Alaric back. Maybe she could build something real. Maybe, on the fifth day, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Alara Whitmore? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Yes? This is Boston General Hospital. We have your brother Alaric in the emergency room. He's asking for you. The world tilted. What happened? He collapsed at home. Cardiac episode. We need you to come immediately. Alara was moving before the call ended. Boston General smelled like disinfectant and fear. Alara ran through automatic doors, past waiting rooms, following signs to the emergency department, with her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. A nurse directed her to a curtained bay. Alaric lay on a gurney, pale, too still, monitors beeping, IV line in his arm. Alara grabbed his hand. Rick, I'm here. His eyes opened, focused on her with difficulty. Alara, what happened? I don't know, I was in my room. Then everything got really hot, like burning. And my chest, he pressed a hand to his sternum. It hurt so bad. A doctor appeared, young, tired, carrying a tablet. Miss Whitmore, I'm Dr. Patel. We've run preliminary tests on your brother. There's something unusual in his blood work. Alara's stomach dropped. What kind of unusual? Markers that are typically associated with, this is going to sound strange, with vampire venom exposure. The room went cold. That's impossible, Alara said. He's never been bitten. I didn't say he was bitten, but there's a compound in his system that mimics vampire venom. It's synthetic, manufactured. Dr. Patel frowned at the tablet. I've never seen anything like it. Do you know if he's been taking any experimental medications? The orange pill bottle, Vivian's so-called heart medication. Yes, Alara said numbly. For about 6 months. I need to know what it was. This compound is attacking his cardiac system. If we don't identify it and counteract it soon, Dr. Patel didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Before Alara could respond, voices rose in the hallway, loud, angry, authoritative. She stepped out of the bay and froze. Vivian stood near the nurse's station, but she wasn't alone. A vampire stood beside her. Male, tall, silver hair despite a face that looked 40. Dressed in formal attire that screamed money and power, and behind them hospital security. That's her, Vivian said, pointing at Alara. She kidnapped my nephew from my care. I didn't. Alara Whitmore. The vampire's voice was smooth, cold. I am Councilman Dante Corvus. You are under suspicion of colluding with Lucien Noir in the illegal experimentation on a human minor. The words didn't make sense. Alara shook her head. What are you talking about? Your brother has vampire markers in his bloodstream. Dante's smile was all teeth. Synthetic compounds that can only come from one source. Illegal turning serum. And testimonies suggest Lucien Noir has been seen near your aunt's residence in recent days. That's a lie. What is it? Dante stepped closer. Or are you protecting him because he offered you money, a job, perhaps more? Alara's hands clenched into fists. Lucien had nothing to do with this. My aunt gave Alaric experimental medication. She's the one lying to save her benefactor. Dante's voice carried through the hall. How predictable. More people appeared, vampire guards in dark suits. They surrounded the emergency bay, and then Lucien arrived. He came through the main entrance with Dr. Isadora beside him, moved with that liquid grace that parted crowds like water. His eyes found Alara, then Dante. What is the meaning of this? Lucien's voice was quiet, lethal. Your Majesty. Dante inclined his head, a mockery of respect. I'm placing you under arrest for violation of the ancient accords, specifically the illegal creation of vampire hybrids through forced experimentation on human subjects. That's absurd. Is it? Dante gestured toward the emergency bay. The boy has synthetic vampire compounds in his system, compounds that require centuries of knowledge to create. You're one of the few with that capability. I've never met the boy. Witnesses say otherwise. Dante pulled out a tablet, showed surveillance footage. Grainy, dark. A figure near Vivian's house that could have been anyone. Could have been Lucien. Fabricated, Lucien said flatly. The council will determine that. Dante nodded to the guards. You're to be held until trial. 3 days hence. The guards moved forward. Lucian didn't resist, but his eyes locked on Alara one last time. And in them, she saw something that made her chest ache. Trust. He was trusting her to find the truth, to fight when he couldn't. Then they took him away. Dr. Isidore rushed to Alara's side. What happened? They're framing him. Alara's voice shook. For something he didn't do. Vivian appeared in her peripheral vision, smiling, victorious. This is what happens when you align yourself with monsters, Vivian said softly. They destroy everything they touch. Alara turned to face her aunt and finally understood. This had been the plan all along. Poison Alaric with synthetic vampire compounds. Frame Lucian. Create a scandal that would either destroy the Vampire King or force the council to pay enormous settlements to avoid public exposure. Vivian had weaponized Alaric, used him as bait, nearly killed him for money. You did this, Alara whispered. Vivian's smile widened. Prove it. She left. Dante followed. And Alara stood in the hospital corridor with rage burning so hot in her veins she thought it might consume her. Dr. Isidore touched her arm. Alara, I need you to listen. The compound in Alaric's blood. I've seen it before. Where? Illegal vampire research labs, black market operations. There's one in Boston. Sanguis Medical Corporation. Isidore's eyes were fierce. If your aunt bought that medication from them, there will be records, receipts, evidence. She'll have hidden it. Then we find it. Isidore's voice was steel. Lucian has 3 days. We prove his innocence, or he's convicted of crimes that carry a death sentence, even for kings. Alara looked back at Alaric's bay, her brother lying there, poisoned, used. Something inside her crystallized. She'd spent 10 years being paralyzed by fear, being small, being invisible. But terror hadn't protected Alaric, silence hadn't saved her, and she was done letting Vivian win. I know where she keeps important documents, Alara said. In a safe in her bedroom. I've seen the combination. Can you get in? Yes. Dr. Isidore's expression was grim, approving. Then let's go hunting. The next night came to Vivian's house like a held breath. Alara stood across the street and watched lights go out one by one. Vivian's bedroom, Cassandra's, the living room. By midnight, the house was dark. She waited another hour, then crossed the street, used the key she'd never returned. The house was silent, familiar. Every floorboard that creaked, every shadow that fell wrong. 10 years of navigating this space had mapped it into her bones. She climbed the stairs. Vivian's bedroom door was closed. Alara tested the handle, unlocked. Inside, moonlight filtered through curtains, illuminated the bed where Vivian slept, the dresser, the closet. The safe was behind a painting of Cassandra. Pretentious, expensive. Alara moved silently, lifted the painting. The safe was small. Digital keypad. She entered the code she'd seen Vivian use dozens of times, her birthday, because Vivian was predictable in her narcissism. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of papers, jewelry, cash. Alara pulled out documents, used her phone's flashlight to read. Medical bills, and there it was. Sanguis Medical Corporation, invoice for experimental cardiac treatment. Subject A. Whitmore, male, age 16. Total cost, $50,000. Payment confirmed. Alara's hands shook as she photographed every page. Kept digging. Found more. A contract. Detailed. Specifying treatment protocols and expected outcomes, including a clause about synthetic vampire compound integration and delayed symptom manifestation. They'd known. Vivian had paid to have Alaric poisoned, deliberately, slowly. Alara found another envelope, sealed. She opened it, and the world stopped. Last will and testament of Robert and Mira Whitmore. Her parents. She read by phone light with her heart hammering. We leave our entire estate, valued at $5.2 million, to our children Alara Marie Whitmore and Alaric James Whitmore, to be held in trust until Alara turns 21 and Alaric turns 18. We name Vivian Harlow as trustee with the understanding that all funds are to be used solely for our children's benefit. $5.2 million. The number blurred. Alara kept reading. Bank statements, showing systematic withdrawals over 10 years. Transfers to Vivian's personal accounts. Luxury purchases. Travel. Jewelry. Embezzlement. Every penny of their inheritance. Gone. She dug deeper. Found a police report. Marked confidential. Her parents' accident. The words jumped out at her. Brake line tampering suspected. Investigation ongoing. Primary person of interest, Vivian Harlow. Financial motive confirmed. Insufficient evidence to prosecute. The phone slipped from Alara's hands, hit the carpet with a muffled thud. Her parents hadn't died in an accident. They'd been murdered. And Vivian had done it. For money. For a fortune she'd then spent on herself while forcing Alara and Alaric to live like charity cases. A sound behind her. Alara spun. Vivian stood in the doorway, bathrobe, hair down, and in her hand a gun. "I knew you'd come back," Vivian said quietly. "You were always too curious for your own good." Alara rose slowly, the documents still clutched in her hand. "You killed them," she whispered. "My parents, you murdered them." "They were weak," Vivian's voice was matter of fact. "My sister married a rich man while I struggled. She got everything handed to her. So yes, I took what should have been mine. It wasn't yours, it was ours. Mine and Alaric's. You were children. What did you need with millions?" Vivian gestured with the gun. Casual. "I raised you, fed you. That money paid for your existence." "You stole it!" Ilara's voice was stronger now, fury burning through fear. "And then you poisoned Alaric, your own nephew, to frame Lucien Noir for more money." Vivian smiled. "The council will pay 10 million to settle, maybe more, and that vampire king will be executed. Win-win." The door opened wider. Cassandra stepped in, eyes wide, listening. "Mom?" Her voice was small. "You killed Aunt Mira?" "She took your father from me," Vivian snapped. "Before they met, he wanted me. But she swooped in with her sweet act, and he forgot I existed. She deserved what she got." Cassandra's face crumpled. "You told me it was an accident." "It was handled. That's all that matters." Vivian's eyes never left Alara. "Now give me those documents." "No." "Alara, don't be stupid. You're alone in my house, with a gun pointed at you. No one knows you're here. Give me the papers, or I'll make this look like a break-in gone wrong." Ilara's mind raced. The documents were the only proof. Without them, Lucian would die. Alaric would be trapped with Vivian, and Alara would be just another dead orphan. She looked at Cassandra, saw something she'd never expected. Horror. Cassandra had been cruel, vicious, but she hadn't known the depth of her mother's crimes. "Your mother murdered my parents," Alara said to her cousin. "She embezzled $5 million, and she poisoned Alaric, your cousin, a 16-year-old boy." Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, tell me she's lying." "She's trying to manipulate you," Vivian said, "like she always does." "Then why do you have a gun?" Cassandra's voice broke. "Why are you threatening to kill her?" "Because she's going to destroy our family." "You already did that." Cassandra moved between them, shaking. "I've done horrible things because you told me to. Because I thought we were fighting against someone who was trying to hurt us. But we're the monsters. We've been the monsters all along." Vivian's expression hardened. "Get out of the way, Cassandra." "No. Now." "I said no." Cassandra's hands were fists. "Alara, run." Alara didn't hesitate. She grabbed the documents and ran. Behind her, Vivian screamed. A gunshot cracked through the night. Alara threw herself down the stairs, hit the front door, burst into the street, ran until her lungs burned, until Boston General's lights appeared ahead. She didn't stop until she was inside. Safe, surrounded by people and cameras and witnesses. Only then did she let herself shake. Dr. Isadora met her in the waiting room, took the documents with careful hands, read them while Alara tried to breathe. "This is everything we need," Isadora said finally. "Evidence of premeditated murder, embezzlement, and proof that Alaric was deliberately poisoned with synthetic compounds from Sanguis Medical. Will it be enough to free Lucian?" "More than enough." Isadora's expression was fierce. "But you'll need to testify, in front of the Vampire Council, under oath." "I'll do it." "There's a problem." Isadora hesitated. "Humans can't testify in vampire legal proceedings. Their words hold no weight. You'll need official standing." Alara's stomach dropped. "What kind of standing?" "Family connection to a vampire of noble blood. Or," Isadora met her eyes, "marriage to one." The word hung between them. "Marriage of Tram." "There's no time to arrange that," Alara said. "The trial is in 2 days." "No." A new voice. Male. Familiar. Alara turned. Lucian stood in the doorway, still in the clothes he'd been arrested in, looking exhausted, furious, and very much free. "They released you?" Alara asked. "Emergency bail." "Doctor." Isadora presented preliminary evidence. He moved toward her. But Alara, what she's suggesting, it's not a small thing. I know. Marriage in vampire law is binding, permanent. You would be tied to me for the rest of your life. I understand. Do you? His eyes searched hers. I'm asking you to become my wife, not to save you, not even to save me, but because it's the only way your testimony will matter, and I need you to choose this freely. Alara thought about Alaric in a hospital bed, about her parents dead 10 years because of greed, about Vivian destroying lives without consequence, about the choice between safety and justice. She'd been choosing safety for a decade, and it had gotten her nothing but pain. Yes, she said, I'll marry you. Lucian's expression shifted, something raw and unguarded crossing his face. Are you certain? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He stepped closer, took her hands. His were cold, solid, real. Then we do this now, he said, tonight, before the council can interfere. Dr. Isadora was already moving, making calls, gathering what was needed, and Alara stood in a hospital waiting room at 3 in the morning with a vampire king holding her hands and the future burning bright and terrifying ahead of her. This wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was hers, finally, completely hers. 2 days after the arrest, the ceremony happened in a private room at the Obsidian Rose Hotel. No guests, no fanfare, just Lucian and Alara, Dr. Isadora and the hotel manager as witnesses, and a vampire officiant who spoke in a language older than English. The words washed over Alara like water, ancient, heavy with meaning she couldn't fully grasp, but the blood ritual she understood. Lucian cut his palm with a silver blade, then hers, their hands clasped together, blood mixing, hot and cold simultaneously. And Alara felt it, something rushing through her veins, not painful, but overwhelming, like being pulled into a current stronger than anything she'd ever known. Images flooded her mind, Lucian's memories, a battlefield 300 years ago, standing over a woman with dark hair and terrified eyes. His sister, dying because he hadn't protected her from vampire law that said half-human children were abominations. Another woman, Seraphine, human, beautiful, smiling at him in a garden, then lying still in his arms, dead from a poison meant to prove vampires couldn't love humans without destroying them. Loneliness, centuries of it, a weight that pressed down until it became part of his bones. And then, a ballroom, red hair, green eyes, a woman being accused publicly and standing despite her terror. Recognition, not of who she was, but of what she could become. The vision faded. Alara gasped, found herself staring into Lucian's eyes. He was seeing her too. She knew it, her memories flowing into him the way his had into her. The intimacy of it was staggering. It is done, the officiant said. Their hands separated, the cuts healed instantly. No scars, but the bond remained. Alara could feel it, a thread connecting her to Lucian, awareness of him humming at the edge of her consciousness. You are now bound, the officiant continued, under ancient law. Your words carry equal weight, your testimony equal authority. Lucian touched her face, gentle, reverent. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Alara's voice was steady. We still have to win. His smile was small, tired, real. We will. And looking into his eyes, feeling the bond between them pulse with certainty, Alara believed him. They would tear down Vivian's lies, expose the truth, save Alaric, and make everyone who'd underestimated her remember her name. Alara Ashford Noir, not a victim, not a servant, a force they should have been terrified of from the beginning. The Vampire Council chamber existed beneath the Obsidian Rose Hotel like a secret the Earth had been keeping for centuries. Alara descended stone stairs that spiraled down 3 levels below street level. The temperature dropped with each step. The air grew heavy, ancient, thick with the weight of laws written when America was still colonies and vampires ruled from shadows. Dr. Isadora walked beside her. Lucian had been taken separately, kept in holding until the trial began. But Alara could feel him through the bond, a steady pulse at the edge of her awareness. Calm, certain, waiting. The chamber seats 200, Isadora said quietly. Vampire nobility from across the Eastern Territory. They'll be watching, judging. Many of them want Lucian gone. He's too progressive, too willing to give humans power. They'll hate that he married me. They already do. Isadora's smile was grim. Use it. Their contempt makes them underestimate you. And that's when you strike. They reached the bottom of the stairs. Massive doors, black wood carved with symbols Alara didn't recognize. Two guards stood watch. They opened the doors without speaking, and Alara stepped into a room that stole her breath. The council chamber was a cathedral carved from obsidian. The ceiling arched 30 feet overhead, ribbed like a cathedral, inlaid with silver that caught torchlight and threw it back in fractured stars. The walls were smooth black stone. No windows, no natural light, just torches burning in iron sconces that smelled like myrrh and something darker. Blood. The chamber floor was tiered, rising in concentric circles like an amphitheater. 200 seats filled with vampires dressed in formal attire that spanned centuries of fashion. Victorian gowns, modern suits, clothing from eras Alara couldn't name. All of them watching as she entered. All of them seeing the human girl who dared to walk into their sanctum. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform. 3 thrones, the middle one larger than the others, council elders, ancient vampires who governed vampire law with absolute authority. And below the platform, a witness stand, where Lucian would fight for his life, where Alara would fight for truth. She took her seat in the gallery, front row, reserved for family of the accused. Beside her, Dr. Isadora settled with the stillness of someone who'd witnessed centuries of trials. Who knew how this would unfold? The elders entered, 3 vampires who looked carved from time itself. The center elder was male, tall, silver hair to his waist, eyes so pale they looked colorless. He wore robes the color of dried blood. His voice filled the chamber without effort. We convene to judge Lucien Noir, king of the Eastern Territory, on charges of violating the ancient accords, specifically the illegal experimentation on human subjects through forced vampire transformation. He paused. How does the accused plead? Guards brought Lucian in. He wore the same formal black he'd been arrested in. No chains, no restraints. But the implication was clear. He was here as criminal, not king. Lucian stood before the elders with his head high and his voice steady. Not guilty. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The elder nodded. Councilman Dante Corvus will present evidence for the prosecution. Dante rose from his seat, moved to the center floor with theatrical grace. He was dressed in silver and white, like an angel delivering judgment. He was anything but. Esteemed elders, honored council. Dante's voice carried perfectly. The evidence is simple. A 16-year-old human boy, Alaric Whitmore, was found with synthetic vampire compounds in his bloodstream. Compounds that require centuries of alchemical knowledge to create. King Lucian possesses such knowledge. He gestured to a screen that descended from the ceiling, showed medical reports, highlighted the vampire markers in Alaric's blood. Furthermore, Dante continued, witnesses placed the accused near the boy's residence in the days before his collapse. An investigation reveals the boy's sister, Alara Whitmore, was recently employed by King Lucian. A convenient access point to a vulnerable human family. Alara's hands clenched. Every word was carefully constructed, true enough to seem credible, false enough to condemn. Dante showed more evidence. Surveillance footage of a figure near Vivian's house. Too dark to identify, but the height matched Lucian. The build. The conclusion is unavoidable, Dante said. King Lucian, in his misguided attempt to prove humans and vampires can coexist, experimented on a child. When the experiment went wrong, he attempted to cover it up. And when discovered, he manipulated the boy's sister through employment and false promises. He turned to face Lucian. You have endangered everything we've built. Every treaty, every careful balance. For what? Your ideology, your pride? Dante's voice hardened. You are unfit to rule, and you must answer for your crimes. The chamber erupted, voices rising, some in agreement, others in protest. The center elder raised one hand. Silence fell like a blade boned on. Does the accused wish to speak? Lucian stepped forward. His voice was calm, but Alara could feel his rage through the bond, a controlled fury that burned cold. I have never met Alaric Whitmore, Lucian said. I have never been to his residence. The surveillance footage is fabricated, and the synthetic compounds in his blood did not come from me. Oh, and then where did they come from, Dante challenged. From the same place his aunt purchased them, Sanguis Medical Corporation, an illegal research facility that creates black market vampire compounds for humans who want power without the burden of actual transformation. Gasps scattered through the chamber. Dante's expression didn't change. A convenient accusation. Do you have proof? I do. Lucian's gaze swept the room. And my witness will present it. What witness? The elder asked. My wife. The chamber exploded. Shouts, denials, outrage. The elder's eyes narrowed. You claim marriage? I do. Bonded under ancient rite 2 nights ago, with Dr. Isadora Cross and hotel manager Thomas Wright as witnesses. All eyes turned to Isadora. She stood. I witnessed the blood bonding. It was performed correctly. Under law, Alara Ashford Whitmore is now Alara Ashford Noir, wife to King Lucian, with all attendant rights and privileges. This is a sham, Dante snarled, a desperate ploy to give the human girl legal standing. Is the marriage valid? The elder asked Isadora. Completely. The elder was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. If the union is valid, then Lady Noir may testify. Bring her forward. Ilara rose. Every eye in the chamber locked on her. 200 vampires, 200 predators, all of them seeing the human who'd married their king, who thought she could stand in their court and be heard. She walked down the aisle, head high, heart hammering, but she didn't let them see fear. She reached the witness stand and turned to face the chamber. The elder regarded her with ancient eyes. State your name. Alara Ashford Noir. You claim blood right through the Ashford line? I do. She touched the locket at her throat. This bears the family crest. My mother was Mira Ashford Whitmore, daughter of the Ashford line that allied with vampires 2 centuries ago. The elder's expression shifted slightly. Recognition. The Ashford bloodline was believed extinct. My mother survived, changed her name, hid, and passed the truth to me. Silence. Then the elder nodded. You may testify. Alara pulled the documents from her bag, the papers she'd stolen from Vivian's safe. She'd had them copied, certified, prepared for this exact moment. My brother Alaric was poisoned, she said clearly. Not by King Lucian, by our aunt, Vivian Harlow. Murmurs rose. Dante's eyes flashed. Baseless accusation. I have proof. Alara held up the first document. An invoice from Sanguis Medical Corporation, dated 6 months ago, for experimental cardiac treatment of Alaric Whitmore. Total cost, $50,000, paid in full by Vivian Harlow. She passed it to the elder. His expression remained neutral, but she saw his fingers tighten on the paper. This proves nothing, Dante said. The aunt could have been seeking legitimate treatment. Then explain this. Alara showed the next document, the treatment contract, specifying synthetic vampire compound integration. Delayed symptom manifestation designed to appear 6 months after initial dosing, the exact timeline that led to Alaric's collapse. More gasps, Alara continued. Vivian Harlow didn't poison my brother out of cruelty. She did it for money. She planned to frame King Lucian, to force the council to pay millions in settlement to avoid public exposure of vampire experimentation on humans. And you have proof of this plan? The elder asked. I have proof of her motive. Alara's voice didn't waver. 10 years ago, my parents died in what was ruled a car accident, but investigation revealed brake line tampering. The primary suspect was Vivian Harlow. She wasn't prosecuted due to insufficient evidence. She held up the police report. My parents left their children an estate worth $5.2 million. Vivian was named trustee. Over 10 years, she embezzled every penny, lived in luxury while telling us we should be grateful for her charity. Alara met Dante's eyes. When she ran out of money, she needed a new source. So she poisoned Alaric, used him as bait to trap King Lucian. And she paid you, Councilman Dante, to prosecute aggressively. The chamber erupted. Dante's face went white, then red. That is slander. Is it? Alara pulled out another document. Bank records showing a wire transfer of $200,000 from Vivian Harlow to an offshore account registered to D. Corvus, dated 3 days before Alaric's collapse. She handed it to the elder. Dante stammered. That could be anyone. Your full name is Dante Matthias Corvus, Alara said. The account is registered to D.M. Corvus, with a registration date matching your birth year converted to modern calendar. Silence fell like a physical weight. The elder examined the document, looked at Dante with eyes colder than death. Explain this, Councilman. Dante's composure cracked. She's fabricating evidence. The human girl is lying to save her husband. These documents are certified, the elder said quietly, verified by human legal authorities. They are admissible. Dante's hands clenched into fists. You would take the word of a human over a vampire of noble standing? I would take evidence over desperation. The elder set down the papers. But we will verify. Bring in the human, Vivian Harlow. Guards opened the chamber doors, and Vivian entered. She looked perfect, hairstyled, makeup flawless, wearing a designer dress and an expression of wounded dignity. She saw Alara and her eyes flashed with venom, but she maintained her composure. Esteemed elders, Vivian said, thank you for allowing me to testify. I want only justice for my nephew. Did you purchase synthetic vampire compounds from Sanguis Medical Corporation? The elder asked. Vivian hesitated. I sought treatment for Alaric's condition. Yes, but I was told it was a legitimate therapy. By whom? The company representatives. They said it would strengthen his heart. Did they mention it contained vampire compounds? No, of course not. I would never have agreed to that. The elder looked at Alara. You claim she knew? The contract she signed in explicitly states the treatment includes synthetic vampire integration, Alara said. It's in the paperwork. She knew exactly what she was doing. Vivian's mask slipped, just for a second, fury flashing across her features before she smoothed it away. My niece is lying, Vivian said. She's been manipulated by King Lucian, given money, a job, married to gain standing. She'll say anything to protect him, then explain the embezzlement, Alara said quietly. Vivian paled. $5.2 million, left to me and Alaric by our parents. You were trustee. Where is the money at, Vivian? It was spent on your care, food, housing, medical expenses. The bank records show luxury purchases, designer clothes, jewelry, travel, a new car every 2 years, renovations to your home that cost $500,000. Alara's voice was steel. You spent our inheritance on yourself. And when it ran out, you needed more. So you poisoned Alaric. And when my parents threatened to audit the trust, you killed them. The chamber went absolutely silent. Vivian's face contorted. You can't prove that. The police suspected you. They documented tampering, but they couldn't prove it was you. Alara stepped closer. But I know, and now everyone else does too. Vivian's composure shattered. You ungrateful little bitch. The words were poison. Hate. I took you in, I gave you everything, and you repay me with lies and betrayal? You gave me nothing, Alara said. You stole everything. My parents, my inheritance, 10 years of my life. You tried to steal Alaric's future, and you nearly destroyed an innocent man to cover your crimes. Vivian lunged, not physically, but her voice rose to a scream. I raised you. You owed me. Your mother took everything from me. My sister got the rich husband, the perfect life, while I had nothing. That money should have been mine. You should have been grateful. The elder raised his hand. Guards moved forward, restrained Vivian as she continued to scream. I did what I had to. They had everything. They didn't deserve it. Dante tried to slip toward the exit. Councilman Corvus, remain. The elder's voice stopped him cold. Dante turned, and for the first time fear showed on his face. You accepted payment to prosecute a false case, the elder said. You attempted to frame your king. You betrayed every oath you swore when you joined this council. It was a loan, not payment. The record clearly states payment for services rendered, Alara said. Specifically, aggressive prosecution of King Lucian Noir on fabricated charges. The elder looked at Lucian. Do you have anything to add? Lucian stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but it carried. Dante has opposed every reform I've proposed. Every attempt to integrate humans into vampire society. Every law that would grant them equal protection. He paused. He believes humans are inferior, tools to be used. And when Vivian Harlow offered him a way to remove me and reverse a decade of progress, he took it. Dante's mask finally fell. Rage replaced fear. You're destroying everything we built, he snarled. Vampires ruled for millennia without humans. We were gates. And you want to make us equals with cattle? I want to make us civilized, Lucian said quietly. Something you've proven incapable of becoming. The elder stood. The chamber fell silent. This council has heard sufficient evidence. His voice was ancient, final. We find Vivian Harlow guilty of murder, embezzlement, attempted murder, conspiracy, and perjury under oath. Under human law, she will be remanded to mortal authorities. She will face trial for the murder of Robert and Mira Whitmore. The evidence will be provided. Vivian's screams turned to sobs. Councilman Dante Corvus, you are found guilty of accepting bribes, conspiracy to commit fraud, and treason against your king. You are stripped of title, lands, and standing. You are exiled to the Shadowlands for a term of 1 century. Dante's face went ashen. The Shadowlands were vampire hell. Isolation, eternal darkness, no contact, no reprieve. For a social creature who'd lived 800 years surrounded by power and influence, it was worse than death. No, Dante whispered. Please, anything but judgment is past. The elder's eyes were merciless. Remove them. Guards dragged Vivian away, still screaming, still begging. Dante went silently, but the terror in his eyes spoke volumes. And then the elder turned to Lucian. You are cleared of all charges, with the council's apology. The words seemed inadequate, but Lucian bowed his head. Thank you, elder. Rise, King Lucian. The elder's expression softened infinitesimally. And Lady Noire, you have shown remarkable courage. The Ashford bloodline's reputation for honor remains intact. Alara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she didn't let them fall, not yet. What of Cassandra Harlow? The elder asked. Alara took a breath. She was complicit in the false accusation at the gala, but she didn't know about the murder or the embezzlement. When she learned the truth, she tried to protect me. You advocate mercy? I advocate appropriate justice. She should face consequences, but not her mother's fate. The elder nodded. 10 years human prison for accessory to fraud. Acceptable? Yes. Then it is done. He struck a staff against the stone floor. The sound reverberated like a bell. This trial is concluded. They let Alara see Alaric 2 hours later. He was awake, sitting up in the hospital bed, color returning to his face. Dr. Isadora had administered a countermeasure to the synthetic compounds. Flushed them from his system, he would recover fully. Alara sat beside his bed and took his hand. Hey, he said. His voice was weak but steady. I heard you got married. She laughed. The sound surprised her. Yeah, I did. To the Vampire King. To a good man who happens to be the Vampire King. Alaric studied her. Are you okay? I am now. She squeezed his hand. Aunt Vivian is going to prison for a long time, and we're getting our inheritance back. Mom and Dad's money. It's ours again. His eyes widened. How much? $5.2 million. He stared at her. We're rich? We're free, Alara corrected. We can choose our lives now. You can go to any school you want, get the best medical care, live anywhere, be anything. Tears spilled down Alaric's cheeks. I thought I'd be trapped with her forever. Never again. Alara wiped his tears gently. We're done living in fear, done being small. We're Whitmores, and we deserve everything good this world has to offer. He hugged her, and Alara held her little brother and let herself feel it. Victory, relief, the bone-deep certainty that they'd survived. And now they got to live. The trial came quickly for Vivian Harlow. Evidence presented, witnesses called. The police report that had languished for a decade suddenly reopened with Alara's testimony and the documents from the safe. Vivian was convicted on both counts of first-degree murder. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. Cassandra pleaded guilty to accessory to fraud. Served her time quietly. Was released 10 years later with nothing. No money, no family, no future except what she could build from ashes. Dante suffered in the Shadowlands. Alone, forgotten. The social creature trapped in eternal isolation. The centuries stretched before him like an eternity. And Alara, her transformation began the moment the council chamber doors closed behind her. 3 months after the trial, Alara stood in the ballroom of the Obsidian Rose Hotel and barely recognized her life. The space had been transformed for the evening's event. A charity gala. The Ashford Foundation's inaugural fundraiser. Money raised would go to helping orphaned and abused children across New England. Alara wore a gown the color of midnight, velvet and silk, her mother's locket at her throat, Lucian's ring on her finger, her hair styled elegantly but not extravagantly. She looked like herself, just the version she'd always been underneath the terror. Lucian appeared at her side, slipped his hand into hers. Nervous, he asked. Terrified. You'll be brilliant. She looked at him. Her husband. The Vampire King who'd seen worth in her when everyone else saw burden. They'd grown closer in the past 3 months. The marriage had started as legal strategy, but it had become something else. Something real. Not love, not yet, but the foundation of it. Trust, respect, partnership, the possibility of more. 200 guests, Alara said, half vampire, half human, all watching to see if I'll fail. Then we'll disappoint them thoroughly. Lucian's smile was small, warm. You've already done the impossible. This is just a party. The doors opened. Guests began arriving. Alara greeted them, shook hands, made conversation, represented the foundation with a confidence she'd built from rubble and rage. She saw familiar faces. Dr. Isadora, who'd become more than a mentor, almost a surrogate mother, who attended every foundation meeting and donated her medical expertise freely. Hotel staff who'd once pitied her, now respected her. Vampire nobles who'd dismissed her, now treating her as an equal. And Alaric, 16 years old and healthy, attending private academy. Thriving, he waved from across the room. Alara waved back. The evening unfolded like a dream. Speeches, donations, dancing. At one point, Alara found herself on the terrace, looking out at Boston's lights. Lucian joined her. They stood in comfortable silence. "I got a letter today," Alara said quietly. "From Vivian." Lucian's jaw tightened. What did she want? "Forgiveness. She's awaiting transfer to her permanent facility. She wanted me to know she's sorry, that she was desperate, that she never meant to hurt anyone." "Do you believe her?" "No." Alara's voice was steady. "She's sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did." "What did you write back?" "Nothing." Alara looked at him. "I'm done giving her my words, my time, my energy. She gets to sit in a cell and think about what she's lost while I stand here living the life she tried to destroy." Lucian's expression softened. "That's not revenge." "No, it's better." Alara smiled. "It's success." But later, alone in her office, Alara did write something. A letter, short, final. She addressed it to Vivian's holding facility, sealed it, sent it before she could second guess. The words were few, but they carried weight. "Dear Vivian, you told me for 10 years that I should be grateful, that I owed you everything, that I'd be nothing without you. You were wrong. I am Alara Ashford Noir, co-regent of the Eastern Vampire Territory, founder of the Ashford Foundation, guardian of my brother, wife to a man who sees my worth, and you are prisoner 847293, awaiting transfer to your permanent facility where you will spend the rest of your life. I'm paying for your legal representation. Not because I forgive you, not because I want you to avoid justice, but because I want you to live long enough to watch me succeed every single day for the next 25 years. You tried to make me invisible, small, grateful for scraps, but I was never the problem. You were, and history will remember it that way. I won't write again. You don't deserve my words anymore. Alara." 6 months after Vivian's conviction, Alara stood in the council chamber and made history. The first human with permanent voting rights on vampire law. The elders had granted it, recognizing her blood right, her marriage, her contributions to peace between species. When she cast her first vote in favor of equal protection laws for humans in vampire territories, the chamber erupted in applause. Not everyone. Some vampires still hated her, still thought she was an abomination, but enough had changed their minds. Enough saw the value in what she represented. Progress. Hope. The possibility that two species could coexist without one destroying the other. 1 year after the trial, Alara visited Alaric at his university. He was studying medicine, following in Dr. Isadora's footsteps, planning to become a doctor who specialized in human-vampire hybrid medicine. They had lunch at a cafe near campus. He looked healthy, happy, whole. "Do you ever think about her?" Alaric asked. "Aunt Vivian?" "Sometimes," Alara admitted, "but not with anger anymore. Just pity." Pity? She had everything she could have wanted, a family, children who loved her, a sister who trusted her, and she destroyed it all for money. Alara shook her head. "That's not strength. That's waste." Alaric was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I got a letter from her." Alara's chest tightened. "What did she say?" "That she's sorry, that she wishes she'd been better, that she hopes someday I can forgive her." "Will you?" "No." His voice was firm. "Forgiveness is for people who deserve it. She murdered our parents. She poisoned me. She tried to destroy you." He met her eyes. "I'm done pretending monsters deserve compassion just because they cry when they're caught." Pride swelled in Alara's chest. Her little brother, not so little anymore. Strong, clear-headed, free. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I learned from the best." He smiled. "You taught me that surviving isn't enough. We deserve to thrive." 5 years later, the Obsidian Rose Hotel had expanded. 3 new locations: New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago. Each one a sanctuary, a place where humans and vampires could meet as equals. The Ashford Foundation had grown too, helped thousands of children, provided education, medical care, protection. Alaric had graduated medical school, opened a clinic that served both species. Dr. Isadora had officially adopted him as godson, given him family he'd chosen, not inherited. And Alara? She stood in the original Obsidian Rose Ballroom, addressing an assembly of human and vampire leaders, proposing new legislation, equal rights treaties, education initiatives. Her voice carried authority now, not because she'd married a king, because she'd earned it. Every word, every policy, every change she fought for, earned through intelligence, courage, the refusal to be invisible. Lucian watched from the back of the room, pride written across his face. His wife, his partner, the woman who'd reminded him that power without heart was just cruelty. After the assembly, they walked through the hotel together, past staff who greeted them with genuine respect, past guests who saw them as symbols of what was possible, to the same terrace where everything had changed 5 years ago. The city spread below them, lights like fallen stars. "Do you ever miss it?" Lucian asked. "The quiet, the invisibility." Alara laughed. "Never. Not even a little. Being invisible was survival. This is living." She looked at him. "I'd rather fight for what I believe every single day than hide to stay safe. Even when it's hard?" "Especially then." Lucian pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said. The words still new, still precious. They'd said them for the first time 3 months ago, after years of partnership building towards something deeper. "I love you too," Alara whispered. And standing there 5 years removed from the girl who'd scrubbed floors and swallowed insults and believed she was worthless, Alara Ashford Noir knew the truth. She'd never been broken. She'd been building, piece by piece, year by year, building strength from survival, courage from terror, power from the refusal to accept less than she deserved. They'd called her nothing, a burden, a charity case who should be grateful for scraps. But she'd proven them wrong, every single one of them. And now she stood beside a king, not as his shadow, as his equal. Now she changed laws that would protect thousands. Now she built futures for children who'd been where she'd been, invisible, frightened, alone. Now she was everything they'd said she could never be. And Vivian? Vivian sat in a cell, year 15 of her sentence, still writing letters no one answered, still trying to justify the unjustifiable, still paying for crimes that could never be undone. While Alara lived, fully, fearlessly, free. The best revenge wasn't destruction. It was becoming so successful that the people who hurt you couldn't touch you anymore. It was standing in a palace wearing a crown and knowing you'd earned every single piece of it. It was loving someone who saw your worth before you believed it yourself. It was being happy, genuinely, completely, unapologetically happy. And as Alara stood on that terrace with Lucian's arms around her and the future stretching bright and infinite ahead, she smiled, because her story wasn't about what had been done to her. It was about what she'd done despite it, and it was only just beginning.